Line's good.
Never on.
Whoa.
Hard. Hardly.
Come on, Brent. Line's good. Got real close. The hair high, right? Try and hit 2/3.
Have they saved it for her? Yes, they have.
Welcome to Game of Stones, everybody. I am Sean Graham, Scott alongside, as always. Hello, Scott.
Sean, I think I've talked about this before, but I'm sick and tired of people on podcasts saying, what I'll say about this is as a bit of a preamble to what they're going to say, because you could just say it. You're on a podcast. All you got to do is that. Say it. So maybe we do it. I don't know. But if we do, please call me out on it, because it drives me up the wall when I hear other people doing it. I listen to a lot of podcasts. There's a lot of great podcasters out there. And, you know, just sometimes it sticks in my craw, as one might say.
Oh, well, and a happy new year to you too, Scotty. Coming out in 2025 on fire.
On fire for 2025. That's right, man. I guess we haven't spoken really since the new year. How have you been?
We haven't spoken at all since the new year.
That's right. Just a couple of text messages.
That's right. Yeah. New Year's was good for me. I took off on New Year's Day on a bit of a trip, just a weekend trip, extended weekend trip, because it was Wednesday, took off. And a delightful time was had by all. And it was a rather subdued New Year's Eve. As a result, somebody in this house was up at 3:30 on New Year's Day. So as a result, I might have been woken up. I frankly don't really remember if I was or not. But then I got up a little later and left. So that was my New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. What have you been doing, Scott? How did you ring in 2025?
Oh, Sean, we had a good time over here. I think we went to bed at 11 because that was enough. But for Christmas, we got a puzzle that is also an escape room.
Oh, yes, you did.
Yeah. And so we just started putting the puzzle together on New Year's Eve, thinking that, okay, we'll finish this puzzle. But the puzzle was different than what was on the picture of the box, because you can't have all the clues just from looking at, the picture on the box. So yeah, we started that, got a fairways, watched a little Eras tour while we did it.
Nice. And
then finished it up New Year's Day while watching some Harry Potter.
There you go. So did you get out of by finishing the puzzles? I mean, you've escaped?
You had to find like the secret clue left behind. So we did find that eventually. Nice. We did have to look at a couple of hints, because there were 7 different things that we had to solve to find it.
Whoa.
And we didn't know what order we were supposed to do it in, or so. But we figured it out. And when we would check, it was basically confirming what we already thought. So
that's good.
In that case, I'm like, oh, I don't feel so bad.
Well, very nice, and glad to know you had a nice New Year's. Hope all of you out there had a wonderful New Year's as well, and that 2025 finds you well and in good spirits as we enter the new year. Normally, our first episode of the year is our Bold Predictions podcast, one of our favorites to do. We are pushing that this year by 1 week. We are going to do that next week, barring some major something that makes us do something else. But the plan right now is to do that next week. My apologies. I thought I could get up a best of 2024. I could not. I'm very sorry about that. Happens. That's 2 years in a row I haven't been able to put it together. So either it's, I have to be more proactive over the course of the year, Scott, or we have to be better at having things that I remember that I could just go cut and put in to a year in review. But my apologies for that. And the reason we're pushing our bold predictions to next week is that there's been a lot that has happened since the last time that we spoke. Mm-hmm. And we are going to start with the action on the ice out in the East Coast for the 2025 Canadian Mixed Doubles Curling Trials. Scott, we didn't talk about this in our preview, But as I was watching it and looking at the scores and everything on the Curling Canada website, it really struck me how much they avoided the word Olympic in this. It was the curling trials. It wasn't the Olympic trials. It was the curling trials, because they don't want to put the cart ahead of the horse, which makes a lot of sense because Canada doesn't have that Olympic spot wrapped up yet. So it was the trials, and it did take place over New Year's. And as predicted by yours truly, Jocelyn Peterman and Brett Gallant come out on top. They will be Canada's representative at the 2025 mixed doubles championship, world championship. And if they secure a high enough spot and secure Canada's place at the Olympics, they will be Canada's participant or Canada's representative at the 2026 Winter Olympic Games in Cortina d'Ampezzo and somewhere else. I can't remember exactly where it is, but I believe the curling is in Cortina. And Scott, it was a very interesting week. And before we get into any of the specifics, how much did you watch of this? Because it was streaming on the Curling Canada YouTube page.
Yeah, I watched quite a bit, Sean. I'd say I watched at least one game, like at least 2 full games every day, and sometimes more. And then I would watch clips of games here and there while I was working. But I did watch quite a bit of this. The coverage was pretty good. One sheet only had the commentary, and then 2 sheets had static cameras, so you could watch if the games got out of hand or if there were 2 happening at the same time that you wanted to watch. You could have it on 2 screens. So pretty good overall. I think they did a good job. They brought in color people from across the country remotely, which was really nice. Chelsea Carey was on there a couple times, Colin Hodgson, a few other people who I'm probably forgetting. I think Scott
Kim Tuck, I heard a couple times.
Kim was on. Yeah. So yeah, lots of different voices, which was really cool to hear, especially for an event like this. You can only hear, the same person commenting about mixed double strategy so many times because it is so similar.
And I think they're going to play the come around here. Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
They got to get that rock in a better position. Like, yeah, they do.
The angles are looking good for this team.
Yeah. So, I mean, overall, really fun to watch. I think things played out not dissimilarly from how we talked about, but a couple of surprises in the field. The Lots not making the playoffs was a big one. They had a big game against Gallant and Peterman, in which so I was watching this one, and they were down 4 in the 8th end, and on Brett's, no, it wasn't Brett's, it was Jocelyn's last rock. Brett touched it a little bit right as it was coming to a stop, and they were like, okay, I guess we're pulling it, because it was the only way that they could get 4 was if they actually had a shot for 5, made a thin double and rolled the shooter up, so got 4. But a little controversy there, right, where they're like, well, it's not, it seemed to me like they didn't feel good about it, but they're like, we have no chance to win if we don't pull this rock.
Yeah, and it's the last game. They had to win it to get into the playoffs. It's the last chance to get to the it's
for the Olympics. Yeah,
it's when Rachel Homan in 2018 pulled the rock in the game. I think that was against Denmark, and like, okay, like is that sort of the spirit of the rule spirit of the game? But also, like, it's like, I know. And there was a pick in, or not a pick, a burn in another game I was watching. It was Weigel and Epping. And
John Epping burnt one.
Yeah. And whoever they were playing just said, I don't think it did anything. And Al Cameron was on the call for that one. He said, that's one of those rules that I don't like, because it puts the onus on the non-offending team. And you're in the spot of, okay, like, other team technically broke a rule.
Yeah.
So you get to choose the punishment. But I understand the genesis of the rule. The reason behind the rule is that if something bad is going to happen, you could just throw yourself in front of the rock. And if it automatically gets pulled, then Right. So that's the reason the rule exists, so that people aren't just falling in front of their rocks when something bad's going to happen on a bad throw.
Yeah, you're not
So
burning it on purpose. So.
yeah, so it does put the onus on the opponent to do something about it, but it also prevents that. So it's a touchy, or can be a touchy situation, but I really can't blame the lots on that one.
No, that was, like I said, it was their only chance, and they did what they had to do. We also saw Laura Walker and Kirk Myers bow out early. They made the playoffs, right? But bow out early.
No, they missed the playoffs.
They did, yeah.
They did. We talked in the preview about how strong pool number A was, and in the last draw, Walker and Myers, they played Nancy Martin and Steve Laycock in the last game and lost it. And that would have given them the opportunity to make the playoffs, because Jennifer Jones and Brent Lang lost to Brittany Tran and Rylan Kleider in their last game. So that would have given them the spot. They ended up both tied at 4-3. Jones and Lang beat Walker and Myers in the round robin, so they got that spot. So a little disappointed for Myers and Walker, two people who had really gone into the mixed doubles full time, and that's what they were focused on. So little bit of a bummer for them. But again, we talked in that preview how strong pool A was, because one of those really good teams was not going to make the playoffs, and in this case it was them. Yeah,
it was a tough go for them there. I watched a few of the Jones and Lang games throughout the week, and one of the good things about this TV coverage, or this streaming coverage, Sean, was no one was there to mute the mics. Really some really colorful stuff. There was one time when the Jones and Lang, their clock started inadvertently and they wanted the time back, and the officials were trying to sort it out, but then they said, "Oh, just play." And Lang was lining up to shoot, and then the official came to talk to him, and he's like, F off, man, I'm trying to effing throw my effing shot. Like it was and like it was not like lowered the level of volume there,
right.
Like we didn't have Stokely on the board to come to the rescue, but it was fiery and entertaining.
Right, there's no fines on YouTube, man.
Exactly. They might have had to put an E in the content rating, but no, pretty good, pretty fun. They had a good run. Probably the last time we'll see Jennifer Jones battling for an Olympic spot.
Who knows? I mean, but, they could do another run if they want to.
They're
both really good.
Yeah, they're both really good. They're still making shots, and as long as you do that, you got a chance. Yeah,
absolutely. So in Pool A, it was, as we said, Tran and Kleider, Home and Botcher, Jones Lang. They come out of the pool. It was Tran and Kleider, Home and Botcher that were both 6-1. Brittany Tran, Rylan Kleider beat Homan and Botcher. That was their only loss in the round robin. So they got the first place spot. Not that first or second place really matters all that much, other than the last rock in the first end of the 1v2 game or in the crossover, which in mixed doubles, like, okay, not nearly as big of a impact on the game as in the 4-person game. Over in Pool B, Peterman and Gallant go through unscathed. Lisa Weigel and John Epping, second place, 5-2. And it is the father-daughter Cotter team. They get through at 4-3. As mentioned, the Lots had a chance in their last game. They lost it. They were also 4-3, but lost to the Cotters. So that was the playoffs. And then in the crossover games, it was Weigel, Epping, Peterman, and Gallant. They won. They go to the 1-2 Page game. And then Tran and Kleider, Home and Botcher, they played the Cotters and Jones and Lang, and both won. So the third place teams both end up losing in those games. So the losers of the crossover games were the 3-4. Homan and Botcher win that to the semifinal, beat Lisa Weigel and John Epping, and then lose to Peterman and Gallant in the final. Now, Scott, on that final, I have to say, I watched the first half of the game in a hotel lobby on my phone, and I watched the second half of the game on my phone at a bar.
Nice.
I will preface it that I wasn't listening, so I don't know what was being said or anything like that. Rachel Homan missed a couple shots. The first end, Peterman Glant did not miss. They made 5 straight. Botcher was a little off in a couple of his. They get 3. Second end, Rachel is facing one. She has a shot for, I think it was 2, and it's sort of a draw tap, if I'm not mistaken. And it over curls and crashes. And then later in the first half of the game, she has another one that over curls, crashes, maybe a little bit light as well. And as I was sitting and watching this, it dawned on me that in 2018 and then again in 2022, when Rachel Homan struggles, the reaction, I think, from a lot of folks is this sense of that she's, oh, you saw it in both Olympics, so like she's no good or she chokes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Which is not true. She's won 2 world championships. So let's dismiss that narrative. But what dawned on me is that she might be a victim of her own success in the narrative sense that I remember when Roy Halladay was on the Toronto Blue Jays. Roy Halladay was so effing good, like to the point where I think we actually forget how good he was. And I worked for the team for 3 summers. And on nights where Roy Halladay was pitching, if he went 7 innings and gave up 3 runs on 8 hits, people, you could hear them talking in the crowd, be like, is he hurt? Like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's wrong with him? And that's still good. That's still a good performance. It's still a good night of work, but it's not like Roy Halladay good. And I think that's kind of the zone Rachel Homan is in at this point, where over curling and ticking on a guard, you're kind of like, what? Is she like, oh, she's off her game. Like she missed 1 shot by an inch. Like that's sort of the level that she's at. So you're just not accustomed to seeing those misses. And then in a game where Peterman and Gallant, I don't care what the percentages were, I think I saw them miss 1 shot. And like the other side, whoever it was, would have had to been perfect. And Rachel misses a couple here and there. Botcher missed a couple here and there. Still played really well. Still probably would have beat anybody else in the field. But you come away from it feeling, oh, they really struggled, when no, you're just not used to them missing at all.
Yeah, I think that's fair. And it's one of those things in this game where in mixed doubles, every shot is so much more important, right? It's like college football versus the NFL, where every game is so much more important because you can't afford to lose at all. Right. And in an 8-end game where there's only 5 shots per end and you're only throwing 2, right? You got 16 shots, but they're definitely different. There's more weight to them in this game. So from that perspective, I think it's really easy to see how 1 shot could, sort of bring you down the whole time. And for Roy Halladay, like that comparison, I know he would always be super tough on himself. And I think Rachel Homan is the same on the ice, right? Tough on herself. And that sort of gives permission at times for the fans to be like, oh, look, they're unhappy with themselves. I will also be unhappy with them.
Right.
Which isn't right, but I think there's a psychology to that.
Yeah. Absolutely. So it was an interesting game to see. I think it was either the 4th or the 6th end. I can't remember, but Peterman Glant got 2 in both those ends. And that was an end where Rachel's last one over curled and ticked a guard. And there might have been a shot for Jocelyn Peterman to get a 4. And they opted for just the easier draw for 2 or the easier shot. I was sitting there thinking, I'll just go win the game. Where it's like,
well, I mean, at that point, 2 was probably
good
enough, right?
It was winning the game. Yeah. It's, you know what? I'm not going to sit on it as much as Brad Gushu in the 2006 Olympics, not going for 7 or missing the shot for 7, which still for some reason like makes me mad that he missed that shot. But still, it's like, just sort of go for it. But yeah, and the final score ends up being a lot closer than you would think. It's 8-7. Homan and Botcher steal 2 in the 8th end, but Peterman Glant were in the mode of just get rid of rocks, do this. And Peterman had a wide open hit on her last one and hit, and it was Homan and Botcher were sitting 3, and she just hit the top one, and that was it for 2. So It's an 8-7 game, but it wasn't as close as an 8-7 game might imply. But great shot making by Peterman Gallant. They didn't lose all week. They were the best team in the field that week. So full fair to them for winning. And they will now wear the maple leaf through to the 2026 Olympics should they qualify.
Yeah, I think it's a good representative for Canada. And when we talked, you mentioned already that you had predicted them to win. I had picked Homan and Botcher. So
pretty good.
With that final, at least one of us would have been right.
Yeah, we're going to win either way. So that is the big event to kick off 2025. Scott, other pieces of news in the curling world. Let's go to lineup changes because there was a rather significant one on the women's side. We talked in the Stoney Awards how the in-season lineup shuffle had to this point only affected the men's side, and then it is now made its way to the women's side as Carly Burgess has left Team Chelsea Carey. And a few days later, it was announced that she would be joining Carey Einarson to fill in for Shannon Burchard, whose knee is not getting better. The rehab has not been as successful as they would have liked. So Shannon Burchard will not play for the rest of the season. Carly Burgess is going to step in for the Grand Slam that's coming up next week, the Scotties, the Worlds, of course, if they win, and then the Players' Championship. And the offshoot of this is that Team Carey had a spot in the Scotties because it was Jennifer Jones' team last year. They had a pre-qualified spot. They also had a spot in the Canadian Olympic curling trials. Both of those are now gone because you need 3 players from the teams that accumulated the points to maintain those spots. So the Scotties spot goes to Selena Sturmey. The trial spot goes to Carey Einarson. So that is the situation. To further complicate matters, the Manitoba Scotties field is full and is set. So at this point, unless Curl Manitoba makes an exception or does something, Team Carey has no path to the Scotties. So they go from their guaranteed entry, working their whole season towards it. We've talked before that Chelsea Carey has a history of not necessarily the greatest falls into incredible Scotties weeks because she's been great at the Scotties in her career to now not necessarily having a path into it. So for as much as this in-season lineup change hit the men's game, this one I think trumps it in the overall impact to not only this team of Chelsea Carey, and we don't have an announcement yet on who's going to come in and take that spot, but also, Scott, on obviously Selena Sturmey and Carey Einarson.
Yeah. This is really big, and like, yeah, for her teammates, right? Like,
yeah.
I think it's got to be like she didn't like playing with Chelsea Carey, right?
I guess. I mean, so Gregory Strong came out with a article today in the Canadian press. He talked to Carly Burgess, and he said, and Carly Burgess said that it was unfortunate, and she recognized that she put Chelsea, Emily, and Lauren in, quote, an uncomfortable situation, but sometimes it's the way the sport goes. I just had to prioritize. Well, it is now. I just had to prioritize myself a little bit. It's hard for me to do that. It wasn't easy. It's a tricky situation. Of course, the reality of this too is Carly Burgess doesn't have a team for next year.
Yeah.
Right. So this is like, it's clear that the deal with Carey Einarson is for the rest of this season. Now, unless Shannon Burchard's knee is worse than expected, but you would expect a summer of rest and rehab that Shannon Burchard will be ready to go and she'll get her spot back. And the Brianne Harris news, I don't think affects this. Kristen Karwicki has done a great job, did a great job last year. If Brianne Harris can come back and play, that's her spot. But Kristen Karwicki has established herself as the, I guess, first replacement player, the 5th player on that team. So unless something else happens, I have no idea. But I mean, this is a tough one.
This is really tough. And yeah, I don't know. Like I'm trying to think of a corollary like in another sport where somebody goes from, having a guaranteed roster spot on a team that's going to the championship to do non-roster with somebody who has one in the past, but is just sort of struggling and limping along, I guess.
Right.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm sure it was hard for her to do, but
yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I don't know. Like for Emily and Lauren are the ones I feel the worst for, right? Like the three of them could have said, "Hey, Chelsea, this isn't working out." Pulled kick Brendan Botcher off the team. You know what I mean?
Right.
And kept all of their points.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We don't know what the dynamic was. We have no idea. It happened in the summer too, where Mackenzie Zacharias gave an interview and was asked, well, would you come back? And it was pretty clear that no, she wouldn't come back to the team. So don't know what's going on there. I do think that there's it's not obviously the same because it's Carly Burgess leaving as opposed to somebody getting kicked off a team. The timing is somewhat like Darren Molding. Now, Team Botcher didn't lose their spot in the Brier that year, but Darren Molding did, and he had a spot. It was in his hometown, and of course, he went out east and ended up getting into that field. But this is when I talked about when it was EJ Harden and Brad Gushu, I think they were the first ones, right? There's so many now, I can't remember.
Yeah.
That being the first of that, I don't like this. I don't like in-season changes. And again, I can understand it. And if it's really untenable and you don't want to play with these people anymore, I can totally understand and appreciate that. But this is a tough for everybody. From everything that's been made public, I don't think anyone is the quote unquote bad guy in this. It just clearly didn't work.
I mean, okay, but like you sort of sign up for a season, right? You don't sign up for a couple months and see if I feel good about it. That's what kind of is a bit icky to me.
Yeah, I do miss the days of 2017, the long for those olden days of 2017. But when Vic was really clear on the broadcast of the old Team Einarson, where he was like, "Yeah, this is a business deal for them." Like, okay, right? And so that idea of you make this deal, there's money involved, there's all these other permutations, ramifications, and yeah, because that is the side of it that we, like you and I, don't really have an insight into, is the deals with the sponsors and all that kind of stuff. And is it based on certain events? And going into a season, do you have greater ability to get sponsors because you're going to be in these events and you have, say, your Scotty spot already picked out, or the trial spot where you can actually wear some of the logos of your sponsors? Like that has a real financial impact for all four of them. And we're not privy to the books, as I say, but this is it's a tough spot for sure.
Yeah. I don't like it. I'll say that.
Yeah.
And hey, I just said the thing that I didn't like.
Yeah, there you go. Chalk one up. So we'll see what happens. Certainly wish all the best to Carly Burgess and Team Einarson, and wish all the best to Team Carey and the players there. And again, we'll see what Team Carey comes up with for a lineup change. And if something happens for them to play in the Manitoba Provincial, what I think would be kind of fun, Scott, that can't work, I don't think, although I don't know where Chelsea Carey currently resides. Even so, Selena Sturmey will no longer be playing in the Alberta Provincial Playdowns. Give them that spot.
There you go. Why not?
Who cares if they're not from Alberta?
Yeah.
Just give them that, and there you go. And then everybody still has the same spots that we're qualified for, and so on.
And so on. Yeah.
In other lineup change news, I can't remember if we talked about this on the show, but unsurprisingly, EJ Harnden is joining team Matt Dunstone. He will be playing the second position. Colton Lott, actually, I think we did talk about this, but just wanted to mention it for anyone who missed it, that Colton Lott will be playing third for that team. And the Harnden brothers are back together. Presumably this one will take us through the Olympic cycle, and then we'll see. The Harndens have been around for a long time if they want to do another cycle or not. But EJ Harnden is now going to be curling out of Manitoba, and not really in line with the residency rules, but Matt Dunstone has a spot, so it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, exactly. And EJ never curled out of Newfoundland, right? They only wore the maple leaf while he was on the team.
Correct. I don't think he got he's not on the Adam Casey trail yet.
Yeah, so he doesn't get that coveted NL jersey.
No, he does not. Doesn't even get and on this one, he won't get a Manitoba one, right? He'll get a MBD one.
Yeah. It's a Manitoba one, but it's
not a real Manitoba one.
We'll see what colors they get. That'll be what dictates it.
Yeah. All right. Elsewhere, Scott, the next Grand Slam is coming up next week in beautiful Guelph, Ontario. That is relatively local to where we grew up. It's going to be played at, is it the Sleeman Center? I think, or what used to be the Sleeman Center.
Let me look.
It's going to be played at the arena where the Guelph Storm play.
Yeah, Sleeman Center.
At the Sleeman Center. And Scott, a few years ago, we did an episode where we talked about ways to make the Grand Slam more interesting. And one of the things we talked about was, what if they drafted the pools that they played in?
What a thought.
It was a great idea. Something that would be a lot of fun. Thought it would be good for the Tour Challenge, because then it's like you're challenging your opponents. But they decided to do it for the Masters. So before the holidays, there was a draft. It was streamed online where the top 4 teams were able to draft their pools. So on the men's side, it was Bruce Mowat, Yannick Schwaller, Mike McEwen, and Brad Gushu. They got to draft their teams. On the women's side, the teams drafting were Rachel Homan, Silvana Tiranzoni, Carey Einarson, and Team Eunjun Kim. So those were the 4 teams that were drafting. Scott, this was a lot of fun to watch, because not only were the teams, was it curious to see who they were going to draft, there was a little interplay in there, especially at the end, where the teams could pick the crossover, because you're picking 3 games, but it's a 4-game round robin. So you got to pick your crossover. So Carey Einarson was kind of chiding Rachel Homan a little bit, goading her into picking her, which she did. So that was kind of fun to see the interplay with them. Just go through real quick that the first pick was Bruce on the men's side. Bruce Mount picked Team McDonald. That is a U25 team from Manitoba. Then Yannick Schwaller picked Rylan Kleider, Mike McEwen, Corey Dropkin. Gushu picked Magnus Ramsfeld. Then he picked Mark Miskatowicz in the snake order. Then McEwen picked John Epping. Schwaller picked Dunstone. Mount picked Hosley. Then Mount picked Nick Edin.
Ooh.
A little bit of motivation there for Nick Edin. Yannick Schwaller, Joel Returnaz. McEwen picked Brad Jacobs. And then Gushu picked Ross White because he had to. There was nobody left on the board. So a little surprised that Ross White was the last team picked, I got to be honest. Maybe not a surprise that Team McDonald was the first team picked, not out of any sort of slight to them, just a young team, not a lot of experience on the stage here. And the women's side, Rachel Homan picked Team Ha first overall, the Chinese team. Silvana Tiranzoni picked Danielle Inglis. Carey Einarson picked Kayla Skrlik. Team Kim picked Team Schwaller, and then Team Kitazawa. Einarson beat I'm predicting that already. Einarson picked Team Tabata. Tiranzoni picked Constantini, who a bit of an early pick there for Constantini, but Tiranzoni has a great record against Stefania Constantini. So maybe he was looking at that. Then Rachel Homan picked Caitlin Laws and Isabella Rana. Tiranzoni picked Hasselberg. Again, maybe a little early for Hasselberg. I mean, it's, other teams were available. Einarson picked Fujisawa, and Kim picked Team Gim. Again, there was the last team picked there, the last team that was left. And then Team Homan picked Team Einarson for the crossover. On the men's side, it was Mowat picking Mike McEwen. So, Scott, any surprises from the draft or anything that stood out to you?
Well, it seems to me like Bruce Mount was probably avoiding picking Ross White, to avoid those. I'm sure they play against each other a lot at the facility there. So picking Nicholas Adine, maybe strange, but when your choices are Adine, Retornez, Jacobs, and White, you don't have any really good choices there. And then on the women's side, we get Team Gim into the same pool as Team Kim, as they were the last ones remaining on the board. And maybe Rachel Homan was specifically avoiding any Korean teams in her pool, because if there's anything that you can point to in the last 2 years that has been less than excellent, it's that maybe she's lost a couple of games to Korean teams. But that's the things that stick out the most to me.
Yeah, I agree. Like the early picks, for the most part, not something you would kind of expect. It's the teams that are lower ranked in the rankings that were picked early, and some of the younger teams too that were picked early, like Team Ha and Team McDonald. Right, those are two of the younger teams, as is Team Kleider. So the younger, less experienced teams go first. Not really much of a surprise there. So I'm glad they did this. It was fun to watch. As I said, I'm hoping in the lead up to it, once the teams are in Guelph, we get some good videos or content, a little smack talk back and forth. What does Team Ha, what does Team McDonald have to say about being the first pick in this, and what comes of it. So that should be a lot of fun. And I'm glad they did this, spice things up a little bit of a different way to go about it. So good job by the Grand Slam.
Yeah, we're waiting for our ideas check in the mail.
So that kicks off on Tuesday in Guelph. As per usual this season, all the draws will be available through the app, and then the coverage on Sportsnet kicks off on Thursday. A couple other small pieces of news here, Scott, that we wanted to talk about. First, we have the provincial championships coming up, and we always like to talk about the coverage of the provincial championships. It's going to take a lot for anybody to take the belt away from Saskatchewan for the best coverage of provincial championships. But Ontario has announced a new partnership with Cogeco. They're going to be showing the Ontario Provincial Championship on Your TV, which is a Cogeco-owned network throughout the province. So that's how they're going to do it. Last year, it was available on YouTube. It was really well done on YouTube, but going back to Cogeco, it used to be on Cogeco for a while. It was on Rogers networks, the local networks for a while. Now it's going to be on Your TV. I think, which I hope is my TV as well. But we will have to see. But Scott, I'm hoping that this helps with production value. Ontario was a province that I think was always pretty good in terms of production value, but just having this partnership, hopefully there's a good partnership there, good production value. It's going to be on Your TV 25, 26, and 28. Going to take a break in 2026. So not really sure why, but they're going to. So there you go. So it's a 3 out of 4 year deal with Your TV.
Wow, look out. I just canceled my cable yesterday.
Oh, jeez. There you go.
No, I'm getting a new service, but with a different provider than I had before, because we get to play that little dance every couple of years.
Yep.
So, okay, yeah, great. I'll sign up for a My account on Cogeco My TV, and then it will really be available on My TV.
There you go. And what I'm hoping is, and there was nothing in the release about this, that they want to force people in Ontario to this service. It's great. I kind of hope they have it maybe geo-blocked and stream it for people elsewhere in the country and in the world, that other people can watch it outside of Ontario. That's my hope. Don't know if they do it, but
I need to enter my billing account number.
yeah, got to have one of those. I mean, they're not doing this for free, Scotty.
Why not?
Yeah, money makes the world go round. So there you go. So that's the situation there in Ontario with the stream. I should note, we should mention this earlier. For the final in the seventh end, I took a note. There were 20,000 people watching on the Curling Canada stream. That's a good number. That's not a great number. Like, it's, when Briars and Scotties could rate in the hundreds of thousands for finals on TSN, 20,000 is not a good number for that moment for, who's going to be Canada's potential Olympic rep. So,
but you know what, Sean? It was also on Saturday afternoon.
Yes, it was. That's not a great TV time traditionally.
And to be honest, I thought that the semifinal was on when the final was on, and I was going to watch the final later, but then, it was actually already done.
Right.
And I saw who won, and I looked at the scoreboard and was like, I don't think I need to watch this right now. So yeah, like a bad job by me of realizing what was what, or when it was. I'm just going to look to see how many views it's got now.
Yeah, I can't find the full game.
It's 78,000 views.
Okay. Better, still not great, I think, compared to what you get on TV.
Yeah, I don't think it's able to be monetized yet. So
yeah. So
not ideal.
Not ideal, no. But there you have it. Ontario will be streamed or shown on your TV. And again, the numbers on Curling Canada, I was a little, surprised by them, but better than behind the paywall for sure, or better than they would have been behind the paywall. So
yeah.
So there you go. The final piece of news. This is something that I found kind of interesting. The World Junior Curling Championship is going to be sponsored. The title sponsor will be Grey Dawes Travel. And they have a whole announcement here about what that means. And it'll be the 2026-2027 World Junior Curling Championships. And they're talking about this, the support that this will provide, creating ways for the travel to become easier for participants. And they talk about things like the suite of travel technology, in-depth reporting, carbon offsetting, and it will allow World Curling to pursue its goal towards greater environmental sustainability. Scott is giving a thumbs up. It's an audio show, Scott.
Oh yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
I
don't know what this means.
I'm excited to learn more about Grey Dawes and the travel opportunities that they provide to businesses and individuals.
All right, there you go. We did a good job. Now, Grey Dawes has gotten their money's worth out of this sponsorship deal, and good job by us.
Yeah.
There you go. So there you have it. A bit of a wrap up of what's been going on in the world of curling the past few weeks. It's been an exciting time to kick off 2025. So much so that, as I said at the start, we postponed our bold predictions for the year, which will come to you next week. So if you want to get that episode and all the other ones that we got coming for you this year, please do subscribe wherever you get your podcast, like, rate, comment, all that good stuff. Helps other people find the show, keeps us growing. You can head on over to gameofstonespod.com. All the past episodes are there, as well as a link to the merch. And if you want to follow us on the socials, we're at Game of Stones Pod, except on Facebook, where it's Game of Stones Podcast. And of course, if you want to let us know what you want to hear on the show, Game of Stones Podcast at gmail.com. Scott, on the curling front for us, it has been a slow start to the 2025 season. I had a bye in my Thursday league on the 2nd. We had a bye in our Monday league on the 6th. We have another bye because it's going from draw 2 to draw 3. Another bye on the Monday league on the 13th. So we will go over a month. Well over a month, actually, 6 weeks between games in our Monday league.
6 weeks, really?
Well, from the time we got off the ice to the time we get on the ice, 6 weeks minus 2 hours.
Yeah, it's crazy. You sent this around to our group last time or yesterday, and I was like, what? Really? We're not? Oh, man. But I guess the good news is that we stayed in the A pool.
Yeah.
So
and we'll be
that's
rested.
Good. We'll be very well rested. Our yeah, I haven't even seen who else is in our pool. But yeah, I mean, I'm not excited to have to, just be off for so long, right? We're gonna have
Yeah.
a lot of rust.
We
We're
will.
gonna have to knock the rust off and then play 5 straight games.
Well, we will have 1 week off.
That's right.
Family Day, holiday here in Ontario. Club is closed then, so we do get that off. And I have a bye coming up in the Thursday. Not a bye. There's a Bonspiel on a Thursday night, so I'll get that week off. So I mean, for me personally, it kind of works out well. Just have this long break now, kind of rest up. Had a bit of an issue with a weight in the fall that was throwing me off a bit. I think that is fully healed now. We'll see when I go out tomorrow night and slide if it is in fact fully healed, but a bit of discomfort. So hopefully that'll be all healed up. But yeah, certainly a long break. And when we stopped playing, there was snow on the ground. It was chilly. Now it's frigid and actually feels like curling weather.
Yeah. And when you say an issue with a weight, you don't mean your weight. You mean you dropped a weight on your
I
foot,
dropped a
right?
weight on myself.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I just didn't want anybody to think that you were, yo-yoing really hard over the holiday break. But yeah, it's really, really cold.
Yeah.
The good news is the canal might open.
That's true.
So,
true.
we might be able to do a nice long, 11-kilometer skate or however long it is.
Yeah. 7.8. So you could do over 15 round trip.
All right.
Yeah. Which I have done before. It's a lot of fun when the wind is behind you, but you got to come back. So
you just take your skates off and walk and say, enough.
Or you just find like a family and just sort of use them as drafting.
Yeah.
Just sneak behind them.
Yeah. You see those people go out with speed skates on the canal?
Yeah.
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 They know where it's at.
They know what they're doing. Yeah. So there you have it. Winter is in full force here in the nation's capital. Winter also in full force in a weird stretch of the United States. That was a weird storm, Scott, just that sort of straight line across the middle of the country, that winter storm. So hopefully everyone who is in that is doing well and was able to dig themselves out. And anybody who is listening to us out in California, in Southern California, hope you are doing well out there and staying safe with the fires that are going on. Very odd, I'd say, to see fires of this magnitude in January, but hopefully everyone is staying safe and doing as well as possible out there.
Absolutely.
So with that, we will be back with you next week for our bold predictions in the curling world for 2025. But until then, keep those brooms on the ice and don't dump that intern.
Make the final.